Hello, everyone, and welcome to our week one lecture for the decluttering group. I'm going to go to share screen and find our visuals. There we are. So the visuals are extremely simple, and hopefully that's helpful to keep them simple and maybe in alignment with some of the kind of what we're doing here, which is decluttering and simplifying and talking about the process of that. Like, what is the psychological and what is the emotional um, impact of trying to declutter, and how do we work with our emotions and our minds to declutter in a way that feels good for us. So, my name is Iviana Rizzo, and I'm a licensed therapist in the state of New Mexico. And this is just kind of like a psychoeducational lecture, more so than any type of therapy. It's definitely not therapy, but maybe you'll find it therapeutic to start thinking of your relationship to objects or to clutter as not being broken, but rather as being a map that shows you pieces of yourself, ways of being that may be quite important. As we declutter, we often find things that have meaning for us that we've kept even though we're not using them, or things that connect us to other people or places in the past or things we want for our future. Um, as we begin, I want to do a short experiential with you where I just ask you a real simple question. Why do you want to declutter? What is your reason? What brought you here? What made you say, this is something that I want to work on? So just spending a moment with yourself, asking yourself, why? What is my reason? What was the impetus for me to think, oh, my life might be better if I decluttered? Or maybe it's other people in your home or people who you want to invite into your spaces. Maybe your work would go better, or your children would have more space to play, or maybe you'd feel more comfortable inviting people over. Or I did this exercise myself the other day and I thought, I could dance all throughout my house if there was less clutter. So now that you've had a moment to think about how you would define the problem or what it is that maybe you want, why. Maybe your why is a problem. There's been a problem with clutter, or maybe your why is what you'd like to have in your spaces or have your spaces be like. I like to think of um, people who collect clutter or people who have a hard time letting go of objects as possibilitarians. I find that these are the people who pick up an object and think, this object has possibility. It may be broken, but I could fix it. It may not be something that I need, but somebody might need it. It may seem like trash, but I bet it could be recycled. Um, it may be outdated, but I bet I could take it apart and make something new. Um, it may not fit in my home now, but maybe I could recreate it and make it into an art craft object. So there's like possibility with things. Objects aren't just the simple objects that maybe we would see, right? Like I often will use the example of if I'm getting rid of a paper towel tube. So many people might think, oh, it's a paper towel tube. It goes to the recycling. The kind of cardboard thing in the middle of the tube when you're done with the paper towels, it goes in the recycling. A possibilitarian might look at that and go, this would be awesome for a playroom to imagine that you're on a pirate ship and you're looking out at sea, looking through the hole. Or maybe it's a trumpet, or maybe it's a place that I could stick all my cotton balls, or um, maybe I could break this up and use it as kindling. I better keep it. So there's this really awesome, I love hanging out with possibilitarians because they care about things and they have amazing ideas and they see possibilities. And this is oftentimes an ADHD. We don't use the term ADD anymore. We just use ADHD, and there's like two different types of ADHD. There's what we call the hyperactive, or the sorry, I'm spacing on the word. It's inattentive. Some people say that inattentive ADD is actually a euphemism for autistic, but I think there are many people who don't believe that, they believe that there's two types of ADHD. Anyway, I'll be referring to it as ADHD during this course. As scientists and researchers have studied hoarding and clutter, they've found that ADHDers tend towards clutter more than neurotypical people or non-ADHD people. And part of that, I think, is that neurodivergent folks, especially ADHD and autistic people, have actually hyper-connected brains. There's less synapse pruning in the age when neurotypical people, their brains start pruning and creating kind of like these super highways. With autistic and ADHDers, there remains almost like a network of crisscrossing and connected city streets, right? And that can lead to under-inclusive organizing. And what that means is that if you have somebody who's a possibilitarian or has a hyper-connected brain, um, you may have a pair of shoes, and a neurotypical person might say, oh, these pair of shoes goes to the shoe pile. But then the possibilitarian might say, no, these go in the dress up pile. These aren't just regular shoes. Or these were a gift from Aunt Sally. They're super precious to me. They can't just go in with the regular shoes. Or these are a part of, these are fancy shoes. These need to go with my ball gown dancing stuff. um, So I also wanted to share a little bit, about neurodivergence and clutter. And I thought we would just stop for a second and give you a moment to think about your objects, the objects that you're going to be working with during our time together, and maybe the spaces that you're going to be working in, and just take a moment to kind of think about if this possibilitarian aspect is true for you. Are there things at in your home where maybe it would be more efficient for you to go through and go, these shoes can just go with the shoes. I don't have to find a special place for them. Or this object I can let go of. I don't have to think about all the possibilities that I could use it for. If I ever need it again, maybe I can buy a new one or borrow one from a friend. So just taking a moment to think about whether that applies to you. And whether it applies to your spaces. Some people might find, oh, I've been keeping this space for a craft room, but I've never used it as a craft room. If I got rid of some of this stuff that I think could be crafts or could be used for crafts, or I narrowed it down, then maybe I could actually use this room rather than dreaming of the possibility of using this room. So I wanted to next talk a little bit about neurodivergence and clutter. And I'm very interested in autistic and ADHD processing, this possibilitarian processing, and how it can sometimes lead to hoarding, difficulty letting go of items, and excessive acquiring. I'm not talking about like getting rid of special interest collections, but I'm rather talking about people who want to have more space, less clutter, use of all their areas, more ease in executive functioning in their living spaces, and how neurodivergent thinking impacts choice indecision around objects. So that kind of decision fatigue or inability, overwhelm after sitting with objects and having a real hard time letting go. As I said, we are under-inclusive in how we group objects, like where an neurotypical person might see shoes, they go with shoes. Sometimes possibilitarians will see that this is a special category and it could belong to dress up or memorabilia or dancewear or sexy times. Potentiality and specialness impacts our ability to categorize, and thus it impacts our ability to let go. Have you ever had an object that you thought, I want to keep this, but I don't know where it goes? And then it just ends up sitting out and it adds to clutter. We are really creative when it comes to using objects. A neurotypical person might see a broken glass doorknob and know it's time to toss it. Neurodivergent people see a pretty paperweight, a cool fishbowl decoration, a piece of a future statue, etc. A single broken object can be a jack of all trades in our minds. Many of us have poor working memory or visual or spatial memories, so we fear letting go of things because we might not be able to find them again, or we might not have them when we need them, or we buy because we think an object will jog or preserve our memory. May feel I need to keep what other people might see as a useless object to remember a good memory associated with it, or remember a goal that I have for the future. We tend towards animism and object personification. We worry about the feelings of objects if we let go of them. We need them to go to a place where they will be valued. We identify parts of ourselves in objects and worry that parts of ourselves will be lost without them. We can have neurodivergent needs for specific feelings of just rightness, completionism, and closure. We may not want to break up sets or move things unless they have a place, or let go unless something is going to the right charity. We may not want to declutter unless we can fully declutter. So I'm obsessed with this, obviously. I really love the idea of objects in people's homes, this idea of like how we relate to them being a roadmap to kind of deeper things about ourselves. I think what we hold on to, for the most part, there's a reason, there's a value, there's something about our values related to it. I'm keeping this because while it may be a broken piece of jewelry, to me, all jewelry is valuable and it's a treasure, a gem. Another piece I think is that many of these possibilitarians, especially ADHDers and ADHDers, are susceptible to dopamine seeking. And those of us with memory differences we find in the piles a lost treasure or an object, And that feels great. It's like, oh, I forgot that I even had this. And that gives me it's exciting. Gosh, if I just get rid of everything, I won't have that feeling of finding a treasure hidden away. And I think our heightened justice sensitivity plays into letting go of things and acquiring as well. I tend to buy from places that I want to support or buy secondhand for justice reasons or climate reasons. I also struggle to let go of things if they won't go to a good charity or if they might just fill a landfill. So, I've had experiences where I'm like, oh, I don't want to just drop this at Goodwill or Salvation Army because I don't believe in their politics. So this needs to go to for the trans supportive thrift store in town, but they're not open today. um, so yeah, so that's just kind of some of my thoughts on neurodivergence and clutter. And I'd love to hear yours if you'd like to put any in the comments section of this video. I've mentioned that a big hard thing for people is often making sure that things go to the right place. Like, oh, I bought this button 5 years ago for my son who lives in New York, and I know he would love it, but I keep forgetting to take it to him, right? Or um, this collectible is it's an amazing piece of history, and I can't just give it away to anyone. It has to go to somebody who will understand its value. But meanwhile, it's gathering dust or getting broken or shoved in a closet and nobody's enjoying it. So I'd like you to take a moment to just imagine your spaces as you love them to be. Like, if you're somebody who cannot imagine with your mind's eye a visual, you can just start putting it into words for yourself. You can, as you're listening to me, you could be sitting in the room that you want to work on decluttering and imagine it without the objects strewn around or just more clear. What would the space be like if it wasn't cluttered? Maybe even touching into the space on a spiritual level and saying to it, I care about you. I'd like you to be free from this clutter. And you could do this room by room without even doing any action of decluttering. You could just find a place to sit in each of your rooms and make contact with the space, really honoring what might be possible for that space. So I'll give you just a moment to do this. And as you've done this, as you've kind of looked at your space through the eyes or the words of it being less cluttered, maybe check in to see how that changes how you feel. I know for myself, when I think about one of my spaces being less cluttered, I feel freer, lighter, more creative, um, maybe even more compassionate and more spacious. Okay, so this is probably one of the biggest things that I teach about when I teach about decluttering, and that is getting to know your own unique reasons why you keep things. As you go through your house, if you stop and start to notice the patterns of the reasons you give for keeping things, you will be able to use that to let them go. You will be able to find the patterns in why you keep things, and then figure out ways to actually address the root cause. So for example, I like to use the example that I'm a skateboarder, and I tend to just pick up skateboards whenever I see them for free or a low cost, um, and skateboard memorabilia. Um, And over time, I've realized like the actual act of skateboarding is what I love. It's not having all the objects, and that they really can create a lot of clutter, and that I only need one, maybe two skateboards. And so there for a while, I was just collecting whenever I would find a free skateboard or a low-cost free skateboard, I would just take it or things, memorabilia. And it was just collecting dust. And as I was doing the decluttering process, I found myself saying, but skateboarding is really important to me. Every time I would come across a skateboarding object, I'd be like, but I love skateboarding. And what I came to realize is like, I can love skateboarding, but I don't have to let these objects clutter my house and make my home not enjoyable to me. So then I started giving it away and just keeping the things the pieces of skateboarding that really mattered to me. And some of the memorabilia I might have taken a picture of or made sure, like if I had a pair of Vans, make sure that I actually wear them. Guys, I'm sorry if I'm playing with the arrow. I have this bad habit of doing that. It's like a stem for me, so I'm sorry. So now I'm gonna read the some common impediments in thought, kind of like my example just now would be, but skateboarding is so important to me. I can't let go of these things because skateboarding is important to me. It's valuable to me, right? It's a high value thing. If I can think of a use for a possession, I should keep it. I really need this. I better save this because I will probably someday need it sometime. I can't bear the thought of making the wrong decision about this object. I need to make sure this gets handled in exactly the right way. If I make a mistake, the results could be disastrous. Throwing this away means wasting a valuable opportunity or something really precious, something quite extraordinary to me. I am responsible for finding a use for this possession. If this possession may be of use to someone else, I am responsible for saving it for him or her. Throwing away this possession is like throwing away a part of me. This possession provides me with emotional comfort. I love some of my belongings the way I love some people. My possessions help identify who I am. Hanging on to these things is part of what makes me the person I want to be. Having these things reminds me of activities that I hope to do. Saving this means I don't have to rely on my memory. My memory is so bad, I must leave this in sight or I'll forget about it. If I put this into a filing system, I'll forget about it completely. It upsets me when someone throws something of mine away without asking my permission, so I don't want anyone in my house helping me. I'd like to maintain sole control over my things. Okay, so there's kind of some of these questions. Like another one would be, I can think of a lot of ways to use this, or I bet I could think of someone who could use this. I could take this apart and use it for new objects, kind of this possibilitarian thing that we've talked about. Another piece is being overwhelmed. So sometimes that can be, and we'll get into that in the chapter when we talk about energy, but sometimes we'll have thoughts like, I'm just too tired to do this right now. And if you always feel like you're just too tired to do it, maybe you're disabled, maybe you have chronic illness. But if you're always tired, that to me indicates that you're overwhelmed by your objects. It's like too much stuff. And probably you need help from someone else. Um, so I think that's the last of our slides for week 1. I hope it was helpful for you all. You know, just barely touching into this topic. And yeah, I hope that you're able to spend some time doing some of these exercises. And maybe right now, as we end, just thinking of a space that you'd like to maybe to sort sorry, not disorganized, but declutter, that you'd like to declutter. And one way that I help people, and I use this for myself too, is to say, can you name two containments? Two ways in which you can contain this decluttering session so that it doesn't overwhelm you. Like, for example, a containment could be time. I'm setting an alarm for 10 minutes or 30 minutes, 20 minutes, and I'm going to declutter for that amount of time. And then another containment could be I'm just going to do this space. I'm going to do the kitchen counters for this 10 minutes. So that's two containments, right? The area containment and the time containment. Or maybe I'll do this a lot. It's category containment. So I'm setting an alarm for 10 minutes. I'm going through this space and I'm picking up everything that I know is trash. I'm not going to touch anything else except things that I know are trash. And I'm only going to work for 10 minutes. If at the end of 10 minutes I want to do something else, I can. Another category could be I'm going to set my alarm for 10 minutes. I'm going to go through the house and I'm going to find all the pens and pencils and I'm going to see how many I have and if I need all of them. And then the ones that I let go of will go straight to being let go of. And the ones that I'm going to keep, I'm going to find a place for. So we'll talk about that next time as well. Like, does everything in your home have a home in the home? All right, thank you so much. Let's see if I can stop my share and stop the recording. All right, thank you everyone.